Today, we're diving into one of my favorite topics, biological 3D printing or bioprinting. I have quite a bit of expertise in this area where I previously designed and patented dozens of novel biological 3D printers, including inventing single-use biological 3D printing. So it's certainly a topic that's near and dear to my heart. Imagine walking into a hospital with a failing organ, and instead of waiting months or even years on a transplant list, doctors simply print you a new one. Sounds crazy? Well, that's exactly where medicine is heading. We're talking about machines that can print living tissue layer by layer, just like your desktop printer lays down ink. Except instead of printing your kid's book report, these printers are creating human tissue, blood vessels, and potentially entire organs. But hold on, before you start planning to 3D print yourself six-pack abs or a new set of biceps, let's get real about where this technology actually stands. While we're not quite at the print a new kidney over lunch break stage, what we can do today is already pretty mind-blowing. Scientists are printing patches of heart tissue that beat in sync with your own heart. They're creating skin grafts for burn victims. They're even printing mini organs called organoids that pharmaceutical companies use to test new drugs. And all of this is happening with precision that would make a Swiss watchmaker jealous. Think about this. Just 15 years ago, if you mentioned printing human tissue, people would have thought you were talking about a Star Trek episode. Today, there are actual companies shipping bioprinted human tissue to researchers around the globe. And just like how your smartphone today is millions of times more powerful than the computers that send humans to the moon, bioprinting is evolving at a breakneck pace. But here's where it gets really interesting, and this is why I'm so excited to dive into this topic with you today. Bioprinting isn't just about the printers themselves. It's about the entire ecosystem that makes this possible. The specialized materials called bioinks, the software that controls these incredibly precise machines, and perhaps most crucially, the manufacturing execution systems that ensure every print is perfect, because when you're printing living tissue, there's zero room for error. Welcome to Apprentice.io's Industry Insights. I'm Frank Maggiore, and today we're going to explore how this technology works, where it stands, and what's coming next. We'll separate the hype from reality, look at the incredible challenges scientists are tackling, and see how advanced manufacturing systems are making this medical revolution possible. And trust me, by the end of this episode, you'll understand why bioprinting isn't just another cool technology, it's potentially one of the most important medical advances of the 21st century. Whether you're a medical professional, a tech enthusiast, or just someone who's curious about the future of healthcare, you're going to want to stay tuned for this one. We're going to keep the focus today on the domain of biological 3D printing. There are a number of advancements in areas using 3D printing for personalized pharmaceutical medicines, new drug delivery devices, combining multiple prescriptions into customized pills for personalized medicines printed on demand, and for utilizing the concepts around 3D printing for redesigning the entire pharmaceutical manufacturing process. We'll also discuss using xenotransplantation, such as humanized pigs, and the race to determine which method will be dominant for organ replacements in the short and long term. All of these topics will be discussed in future episodes. Let's break down bioprinting in a way that won't make your head spin. Let's start at the beginning. What exactly makes biological 3D printing different from the 3D printer collecting dust in your garage? Well, while your regular 3D printer might be great for making Star Wars figurines, bioprinting is a whole different ballgame. The main difference? We're working with living cells here, folks. It's like going from building with plastic bricks to trying to build with microscopic water balloons that need to stay alive and happy. The secret sauce in bioprinting is something called bioink. And no, you can't refill this at your local office supply store. Bioinks are basically a cocktail of living cells, growth factors, and materials that support cell life. Now let's talk about how we actually get these cells from the bioink bottle to a functioning tissue. There are four main methods, each with its own special twist. First up is extrusion-based printing, the workhorse of bioprinting. Imagine the world's most precise toothpaste tube gently squeezing out lines of bioink layer by layer. This method is like the reliable family sedan of bioprinting. It's not the flashiest, but it gets the job done, and it's what most labs use today. Then we have inkjet printing, which is exactly what it sounds like, except instead of shooting out ink droplets, we're precisely placing tiny drops of bioink. It's like playing a microscopic game of biological connect the dots. This method is incredibly precise, able to place individual cells with the accuracy of a neurosurgeon with OCD. Laser-assisted printing is where things get really sci-fi. We use lasers to literally shoot cells onto a surface with pinpoint accuracy. Picture a microscopic version of those t-shirt cannons at sporting events. But instead of shirts, we're firing individual cells. And instead of hitting a random fan, we're placing them exactly where they need to go. And finally, there's digital light processing, or DLP. This one's like a biological light show, using light patterns to cure layers of light-sensitive biomaterials. It's similar to how your dentist uses blue light to harden fillings, but way more sophisticated. But here's the real kicker. The biomaterials we use are just as important as the printing methods. These aren't your garden variety printing materials. We're talking about specialized hydrogels that can maintain cell life, biodegradable scaffolds that provide structure while the tissue grows, and materials that can actually tell cells what to do and where to go. Think of it this way. If traditional 3D printing is like building Lego bricks, bioprinting is like building with Lego bricks that are alive, need constant care, and can rearrange themselves. Your printed part isn't done when the printer stops. It's just the beginning of the journey. The cells continue to grow, to organize, and to develop into functional tissues. The real magic happens in the combination of these printing methods with the right biomaterials. It's like being a conductor of a microscopic orchestra, where every instrument needs to play its part perfectly. One wrong note, or in this case, one wrong material property or printing parameter, and the whole symphony falls apart. And here's where cloud-based manufacturing execution systems, or MES, come in clutch. Because when you're dealing with living cells and complex biological processes, you need incredibly precise control and monitoring of every single step. One tiny mistake can mean the difference between a successful print and a very expensive petri dish full of dead cells. Let's cut through the hype and talk about what's really happening in bioprinting right now. First, I need to burst a few bubbles. No, we're not printing fully functional organs for transplant yet. And no, we can't order a 3D printed heart on Amazon Prime. But what we can do today is still pretty remarkable. Think of current bioprinting like early cell phones. We're in the Nokia 3310 era of the technology. Sure, it's not an iPhone 15 Pro, but it's still revolutionary and getting better every day. So what can we actually print? Let's start with the success stories. Right now, we're absolutely crushing it with simpler tissues. Things like skin, cartilage, and bone. Companies like Organovo and Aspect Biosystems are already producing human tissue for drug testing and for research. It's like having a tiny piece of functional human tissue in a dish that can tell us if a new drug is going to work or if it's going to be an expensive failure. One of the biggest breakthroughs has been in skin printing. Picture this, a patient comes in with severe burns, and instead of waiting for skin grafts to grow, doctors can scan the wound and print custom skin patches right there in the hospital. This isn't science fiction, it's happening in clinical trials right now. Companies like CellLink have developed specialized bioinks that allow them to print skin with multiple layers, including blood vessels, just like real human skin. In the orthopedic world, we're seeing some amazing applications with printed bone and cartilage. Researchers have successfully printed custom bone scaffolds that actually encourage real bone growth. It's like creating a biodegradable template that tells your body, hey, build new bone right here and do it in this exact shape. But here's where it gets really interesting. We're making serious progress with more complex tissues. Labs around the world have successfully printed heart tissue patches that actually beat and sync, mini livers that can metabolize drugs, blood vessel networks that can support other tissues, and prototype neural tissues that could help treat spinal cord injuries. Now for the full reality check. These aren't full organs ready for transplant. They're more like scaled down versions or partial structures. Think of them as biological proof of concepts. The printed heart tissue might be beating, but it's about the size of a postage stamp. The mini liver might process drugs, but it can't replace a full-sized liver. The real-world applications right now fall into three main categories. First, we've got drug testing and development. Pharmaceutical companies are using bioprinted tissues to test new drugs before moving to animal or human trials. It's faster, more ethical, and potentially more accurate since we're using human cells. Imagine being able to test a new heart medication on hundreds of identical pieces of human heart tissue instead of trying to account for all the variables in animal or human clinical trials. Second, there's personalized medicine and disease modeling. Scientists can take a patient's own cells, print them into tissue, and test different treatments to see what works best. It's like having a biological simulation of your body to run experiments on. For cancer treatment, this could mean testing different chemotherapy drugs and therapeutics on a printed version of the patient's tumor before giving them to the actual patient. Let's not forget the educational applications. Medical schools are using bioprinted tissues to train surgeons. It's a lot better to practice on printed tissue that bleeds and feels more real than a rubber model, or worse, learning on actual patients. Third, we're seeing bioprinting used in regenerative medicine. Printed bone scaffolds are being tested for facial reconstruction, and custom printed cartilage implants are showing promising results for joint repair. Those skin grafts I mentioned earlier, they're currently in clinical trials. And now for a plot twist you probably didn't see coming. One of the most important companies involved in pioneering some seriously groundbreaking work in 3D bioprinted skin is L'Oreal. Yes, that L'Oreal. The global powerhouse beauty company that is more known for lipstick than living tissue. They originally got into bioprinting of skin tissues to move the cosmetics industry away from animal testing, and then ended up developing a whole new market to help patients. Well, hold on to your moisturizer because this is actually incredible. L'Oreal, working with scientists at the University of Oregon, developed a technique called melt electrowriting. Think of it like drawing with a molten plastic that's thinner than a human hair. Using FDA-approved materials, they were able to create intricate scaffolds that look like the world's tiniest spaghetti network, giving cells a perfect place to grow into actual human skin. Here's the really impressive part. While traditional artificial skin models take anywhere from 21 to 50 days to develop, L'Oreal's innovative method cranks it out in just 18 days. That's like going from order processing to delivered in Amazon Prime Time, but for human tissue. But this isn't just about testing the latest anti-aging skin cream. The implications for burn victims and patients with severe skin conditions are huge. Because they're using FDA-approved materials, these skin constructs could potentially be used for actual skin grafts. Imagine being able to create custom-made, perfectly matched skin for burn victims in less than 3 weeks. And get this, the model is so versatile that scientists can actually create different ages of skin, study wound healing, and even develop pathological skin models for research. Who knew the same company behind your favorite mascara could be revolutionizing reconstructive medicine and saving patients' lives? And that's something that's truly beautiful. One of my contributions to the field of bioprinting is single-use biological 3D printing. Now, if you've ever worked in bioprocessing, you know that keeping things sterile is about as easy as trying to keep a white carpet clean at a toddler's birthday party. That's where this innovation comes in. In the early days of bioprinting, bioprinter equipment was typically placed in a cell culture hood or isolator, using only UV lighting to kill microorganisms on the surface, and required lengthy cleaning processes after every print. To get away from these labor-intensive processes, think of single-use biological 3D printing as the medical equivalent of using disposable surgical instruments. The entire printer assembly, we're talking the printing heads, platform, and all the critical components, comes pre-sterilized and ready to use. It's like having a brand new, perfectly clean kitchen every time you cook, except this kitchen makes human tissue. The genius of the system lies in its simplicity. The whole printer assembly is enclosed in a sterile housing. It could be rigid or flexible walls, kind of like those pop-up camping tents, but for printing and incubating human tissue. This housing has special aseptic connectors that let you hook up your bioinks and other materials without breaking that sterile seal. It's like having an airlock for your cells. So if you're in a futuristic hospital where you just finished printing a new kidney for one patient using their own cells grown up in a bioreactor, and now you're switching to print a new liver for another patient using their cells, instead of cleaning and re-sterilizing the entire assembly, you can just remove the enclosed sterile printer housing, dispose of it in a biohazardous container, inserting a new sterile printer housing, and make the aseptic connections to all of the equipment. No mess, no lengthy sterilization or complicated validation process, just a process that works and keeps the platform moving to help the next patient with minimal downtime. The advantages are pretty compelling. First, you eliminate the risk of cross-contamination between batches because everything is sterile and single-use. Second, you don't need expensive clean rooms or complex sterilization protocols. Third, you can validate the entire system as one sterile unit right from the start. And perhaps most importantly, you can connect it directly to other single-use bioprocessing equipment like bioreactors and filtration systems, creating an entirely closed, sterile manufacturing process. Think about the implications. You could have a complete sterile manufacturing facility in a box ready to produce personalized tissues or biological products on demand. It's like having a miniature disposable pharmaceutical plant that fits on your benchtop. I'll get back to this concept in another episode. Be on the lookout for that one in the future. The key thing to understand here is that while we're not quite yet at the print a new kidney stage, what we can do today is already revolutionizing medicine in the ways that matter. We're creating better drug development processes, enabling personalized treatments, and developing new approaches to wound healing and tissue repair. Let's talk about why we can't just hit print on a new liver yet. The challenges in bioprinting make traditional manufacturing look like child's play. It's like trying to build a skyscraper where all the building materials are alive, need constant feeding, and might decide just to give up and die if the temperature's off by half a degree. First up, the biggest technical hurdle, vascularization. Every tissue in your body needs a blood supply. It's like a tiny city that needs its own network of roads to deliver food and remove waste. In natural tissue, we have blood vessels of all sizes, from big highways down to tiny alleyways. But here's the kicker. The smallest blood vessels in your body are so tiny that 10 of them lined up are about as wide as a human hair. Try printing that with precision. Without proper vascularization, any printed tissue thicker than about 0.2 millimeters, roughly twice the thickness of a piece of paper, will suffocate from the inside out. It's like trying to build a city with no roads or plumbing. Sure, it might look great from the outside, but nobody's getting pizza delivered or their trash picked up. Several labs are working on solutions, from printing sacrificial structures that dissolve to leave behind vessel networks to using specialized materials that can form channels on their own, but we're not quite there yet. One of the most innovative solutions to try to solve this vascularization issue for bioprinting is a process that'll make your inner child smile. Scientists are using cotton candy machines to engineer their way out of this challenge. No, they're not trying to make candied organs. Engineers from Vanderbilt University discovered that the way that cotton candy machines spin sugar into tiny threads is remarkably similar to the sizes required for creating capillary networks. This method is called electrospinning, which is also used in creating nanofibers for filtration applications. Dr. Leon Bellin is probably the only mechanical engineering professor with a Target-bought cotton candy machine in his lab. He figured out that these machines create threads about 1/10 the diameter of a human hair, exactly the size of our capillaries. But here's the catch. You can't just use sugar. I mean, you can, but imagine telling a patient your new liver is made out of cotton candy. Instead, they used a clever material called polynisopropyl or PNPAM. That's basically playing a biological game of hot and cold. Above 32 degrees Celsius, it's solid. Below that, it dissolves. They spin this material like cotton candy, embedded in the gelatin mixture full of living cells, and then, here's the magic, they cool it down. The PNPAM threads dissolve, leaving behind a perfect network of tiny channels that can carry nutrients and oxygen, just like real blood vessels. The results? After a week, 90% of the cells were still alive and kicking, compared to only about 60 to 70% in materials without these channels. That's like the difference between a packed highway and a dirt road when it comes to delivering nutrients to cells. Side note, ironically, the cotton candy machine was invented by a dentist in Nashville, Tennessee in 1897. Talk about a sweet plot twist, and someone who understood being able to build a market for perfect repeat customers and their own job security. Then there's cell viability, keeping those finicky little biological building blocks alive and happy. Cells are like teenagers. They need just the right environment, constant feeding, and they're super sensitive to stress. The printing process itself can damage cells. Imagine being squeezed through a tiny nozzle at high pressure. Not fun, right? We need to maintain the right temperature, pH, and nutrient levels throughout the entire printing process and beyond. Scalability is another massive challenge. Sure, we can print a small patch of tissue in a lab, but scaling that up to full-sized organs? That's like going from building a model house to constructing an actual skyscraper. Everything gets exponentially more complicated. And time is a huge factor. Some bioprinting processes are so slow that by the time you finish printing, the cells you started with might be ready to retire. Now let's talk regulation, because if you thought getting FDA approval for a new aspirin was tough, try getting approval for a machine that prints living human tissue. We're in relatively uncharted territory here. The FDA has created specific guidelines for 3D printed medical devices, but bioprinting adds whole new layers of complexity. It's not just about the final product. Every step of the process needs to be validated, from cell sourcing to the final printed tissue. And here's where manufacturing execution systems become absolutely critical, because when you're dealing with living tissue that's going into human bodies, there's zero room for error. Every single step needs to be tracked, monitored, and documented. It's like having a black box recorder for your bioprinting process, except it needs to track thousands of parameters in real time. Cost? Oh boy. Currently, bioprinting systems can run anywhere from $100,000 to over $1 million, and that's just for the printer. We haven't even talked about the bioinks, which can cost more per milliliter than vintage champagne. A single print can cost thousands of dollars, and that assumes everything goes perfectly the first time. Quality control keeps a lot of bioprinting engineers up at night. How do you ensure consistency when every batch of cells is slightly different? How do you validate a process where raw materials are literally alive? Traditional manufacturing can use standardized materials with known properties, but cells, they have minds of their own. Think about it. If you're printing with metal or plastic, you can test the sample and be pretty confident the rest of your material is identical. But with living cells, every batch is unique. It's like trying to run a factory where your raw materials have personalities and mood disorders. So what's the solution? This is where advanced monitoring and control systems come in. We're talking about systems that can track hundreds of parameters in real time. Temperature, pressure, pH, oxygen levels, cell viability, printing speed, everything that could affect the final product. Machine learning algorithms are being developed to predict and prevent problems before they occur. It's like having a million tiny quality control inspectors watching every aspect of the process. Let's dive into the digital brain behind successful bioprinting manufacturing execution systems, or MES. Now I know what you're thinking. You just spent 20 minutes talking about printing living tissues, and now you want to talk about software? Trust me, this is where the rubber meets the road, or in our case, where the cells meet the scaffold. Think of MES as the conductor of an incredibly complex orchestra, but instead of coordinating musicians, it's coordinating thousands of parameters, processes, and procedures that have to work in perfect harmony to create living tissue. One wrong note and your $1 million print job becomes very expensive bio-waste. In traditional manufacturing, if you mess up a batch of widgets, you might lose some money. But in bioprinting, a mistake could mean losing irreplaceable patient cells, wasting precious materials, or worse, creating tissue that could harm someone. This is why cloud-based manufacturing execution systems are absolutely crucial. Let's break down how these systems transform bioprinting operations. First up, process control. Modern MES platforms provide electronic batch records, essentially a digital recipe book that controls and documents every single step of the bioprinting process. But unlike your grandma's cookie recipe, these recipes are adjusting in real time based on feedback from hundreds of sensors. Imagine you're printing cardiac tissue. The MES is simultaneously monitoring the temperature of your bioink, the pressure in your print heads, the pH levels in your cell medium, the oxygen content in your build chamber, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. If any parameter starts drifting out of spec, the system can automatically adjust or alert operators before the cells even know something's wrong. Quality manufacturing and bioprinting is a whole different animal compared to traditional manufacturing. We're not just checking if parts meet dimensional specifications, we're ensuring living cells are behaving correctly. Modern MES platforms can integrate with imaging systems and bioanalyzers to monitor cell viability, tissue formulation, and structural integrity in real time. It's like having a million tiny quality control inspectors working 24/7. Now let's talk regulatory compliance. Everyone's favorite topic, right? In the world of bioprinting, compliance isn't just about filling out the paperwork. The FDA and other regulatory bodies require complete traceability of everything that goes into a bioprinted product. And I mean everything, from the source of the cells to the batch number of the growth factors you used in your bioink. Cloud-based manufacturing execution systems maintain what we call an electronic device history record, basically a digital family tree for your printed tissue. Want to know what temperature the cells were exposed at 3:27 a.m. last Tuesday? It's in there. Need to trace which lot of collagen was used in bioink batch 12345? Just a few clicks away. Supply chain tracking becomes exponentially more complex when you're dealing with living materials. Some of your raw materials might have a shelf life measured in hours rather than months. Manufacturing execution systems can track not just inventory levels, but critical parameters like cell passage numbers, material expiration dates, and storage conditions. They can even predict when you need to start a new cell culture batch based on your production schedule. The real game changer is real-time monitoring and data analytics. Modern MES platforms don't just collect data, they use artificial intelligence and machine learning to make sense of it all. These systems can identify patterns and potential issues before they become problems. They can predict when a print job may fail based on subtle parameters that a human operator might miss. Think of it like having a time machine for your bioprinting process. The system can look at historical data from previous successful prints and compare it to what's happening right now, alerting you if things start deviating from the golden path to success. Integration with existing healthcare systems is where things get really interesting. Modern MES platforms can talk directly to hospital systems, pulling patient data to customize prints, track tissue development, and maintaining the chain of custody from production to implantation. It's like having a digital thread that connects everything from the initial cell harvest to the final implantation. And here's the kicker. All this happens in a validated, secure environment that meets the strictest healthcare data protection standards. We're talking about systems that can handle everything from HIPAA compliance to 21 CFR Part 11 FDA electronic record requirements. The future of bioprinting isn't just about better printers or materials. It's about smarter, more integrated systems that can manage the incredible complexity of creating living tissue. As we move toward more personalized medicine, these systems will become even more critical, handling the intricate dance of creating custom tissues for individual patients. Let's dust off our crystal ball and take a look at where bioprinting is headed. And folks, the future looks wild, but in a good way. Like, we might actually be able to print you a new pancreas wild, not killer robots will take over the world wild. One of the most exciting emerging technologies is called 4D printing. This isn't just about printing structures, it's about printing tissues that can actually change and adapt over time. Imagine printing blood vessels that can grow and remodel themselves as needed, just like your natural blood vessels do. We're talking about smart materials that can respond to their environment, guided by the cells themselves. Speaking of smart materials, researchers are developing new bioinks that make our current versions look like Stone Age technology. These next-gen materials can actually guide cell behavior, telling cells where to go, what to become, and how to organize themselves. It's like giving your cells a GPS and an instruction manual all at once. The convergence of multiple technologies is where things get really interesting. Picture this: AI-designed tissues printed using robotically controlled multi-material systems, monitored by machine learning algorithms, and customized based on your personal genetic profile. We're not just printing tissues anymore, we're creating living, intelligent structures that can adapt and evolve. Here are some breakthrough applications that are closer than you might think. First up, personalized drug testing platforms. Within 2 to 3 years, we'll likely see widespread use of bioprinted tissue models for drug screening. Imagine getting cancer treatment that's been tested on a printed version of your own tumor. That's not science fiction, it's already in clinical trials. Within 5 years, we'll probably see the first widely available bioprinted skin grafts for burn victims. The technology exists today, it's just a matter of scaling up production and getting through regulatory approval. We're also likely to see bioprinted cartilage implants becoming standard practice for certain types of joint repair. The 5 to 10 year window is where things get really interesting. We're talking about functional partial organ replacements. Think patches of heart tissue that can repair damage after a heart attack, or sections of liver tissue that can help support a failing organ while it heals. Now, full organ printing, that's the holy grail, and that's still probably about 10 to 15 years out, barring any major unforeseen advancements. But here's the thing, we might not need to print entire organs exactly as they exist in nature. We're currently developing hybrid organs, which are simplified versions that can perform the essential functions of the organ that we need. You don't need an entire kidney to keep you off a dialysis machine. Even a small functional hybrid organ structure could do the job. At the very least, it could reduce the number of visits required for dialysis, which would dramatically reduce the risks of infection and greatly improve their quality of life. When I was designing and developing new biological 3D printers, I was concerned about the ethics of providing a technology that could provide a steady supply of replacement body parts. Would people become more reckless in their behaviors? Would we all take up extreme sports if we knew we could replace basically any human body parts, which may be functionally better than the original? Would patients listen to doctors' advice to reduce or stop drinking alcohol or using drugs if they knew they could just print up a new liver or other organs that would reset their health? Would the rich just continue to replace body parts to try to become functionally immortal, just like an altered carbon? But at this point, we're just trying to help the patients that need help now, and we can kick the ethics can down the road as we are still fairly far away from that reality, and we're not going to enter into a Repo Man cyberpunk hellscape anytime soon. AI and machine learning are absolutely crucial for all this. We're using AI to design optimal tissue structures, predict cell behavior, control printing parameters in real time, analyze the massive amounts of data from each print, optimize production processes, and even predict potential complications before they happen. The really exciting part is how these systems are getting smarter with every print job. Every success, every failure, every weird anomaly, it all feeds back into the AI, making the next print even better. It's like having a million bioengineers working 24/7 to improve the process. But let's keep it real. There are still some major hurdles we need to overcome. We need significantly better vascularization techniques, more sophisticated biowings, faster printing methods, and more advanced quality control systems. We need to figure out how to scale up production while keeping costs down. And perhaps most importantly, we need to navigate the complex regulatory landscape of putting printed tissues into human bodies. That said, the rate of progress is absolutely staggering. Think about this. 10 years ago, bioprinting was basically a lab curiosity. Today, we're printing functional human tissues. 10 years from now, we might be routinely printing replacement parts for the human body. As we wrap up our deep dive into bioprinting, let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. What we're really talking about here isn't just a new manufacturing technology, it's potentially one of the biggest revolutions in healthcare since the discovery of antibiotics. We're standing at the convergence of multiple technological breakthroughs. On the one hand, we have bioprinting, giving us the ability to create living tissue with unprecedented precision. On the other hand, we have tools like DeepMind's AlphaFold that can predict protein structures with atomic accuracy, completely transforming our understanding of biology. Add in the mRNA technology that companies like Moderna have pioneered, and we're looking at a perfect storm of innovation. Think about this. Just a few years ago, we had to wait decades to develop new vaccines. Then Moderna and Pfizer showed us we could do it in months. That same revolution is happening all across medicine. AlphaFold is helping us design proteins that can target specific diseases. Bioprinting is letting us test these treatments on human tissue before they ever touch a patient. And cloud-based manufacturing execution systems are ensuring that we can produce these treatments safely and consistently. The implications for personalized medicine are staggering. Imagine walking into a hospital with a cancer diagnosis, and instead of getting a one-size-fits-all treatment, you can get a personalized vaccine designed specifically for your cancer's mutation profile. Tested on bioprinted versions of your own tissue, manufactured just for you with every step tracked and validated, delivered in exactly the right form for your body. The key takeaways: first, bioprinting isn't just about creating replacement organs, it's about transforming how we develop and test treatments. Second, the integration of AI, cloud computing, and advanced manufacturing systems isn't just helpful, it's absolutely essential to making this technology work at scale. And third, we're closer to major breakthroughs than most people realize. If you're in healthcare, biotech, or manufacturing, start looking at how these technologies could fit into your operations now. Don't wait for the future to arrive. Help to build it. If you're a researcher or engineer, these fields desperately need your expertise. And if you're an investor or business leader, understand this is where healthcare is heading. The companies that get ahead of this curve will be the ones shaping medicine for decades to come. For those wanting to learn more, organizations like CellLink, BioLife 4D, and the Wake Forest Institute for Regenerative Medicine are doing groundbreaking work in this field. The FDA has comprehensive resources on their website about regulations and guidelines for bioprinting and advanced therapies. Here's what gives me hope. For the first time in human history, we have tools not just to treat diseases, but to potentially cure them. We can design treatments at the molecular level, test them out on human tissue without risking human lives, and manufacture them with incredible precision. We can create personalized solutions for individual patients, and we can do it all faster, safer, and more efficiently than ever before. The future of medicine isn't just about treating symptoms, it's about rebuilding, regenerating, and renewing the human body. It's about preventing diseases before they start and curing them when they appear. And while we still have challenges to overcome, we have more brilliant minds working on these problems than ever before, armed with tools that would have seemed magical just a generation ago. Remember, every medical breakthrough in history seemed impossible until it wasn't. Vaccination, antibiotics, organ transplants, they all faced their skeptics who said it couldn't be done. Now we're standing on the brink of another revolution, and this time we can see it coming. The only question is, how quickly can we make it happen? As we close today's episode, I want you to imagine walking into a hospital 20 years from now. The doctor doesn't just have access to your medical history, they have a digital twin of your body, complete with your own printed tissue for testing treatments on. They can design and manufacture personalized treatments just for you, validated by AI and produced with perfect consistency. That's the future that we're building, one layer at a time. In an industry where precision and compliance are paramount, Apprentice's Tempo platform offers a cutting-edge manufacturing execution system solution. It's cloud-based, mobile-first, operator-centric, with the most intuitive UI in the industry, making it perfect for today's dynamic pharmaceutical manufacturing environments and for the production of the world's most complex drug products. Whether you're working on groundbreaking cell and gene therapies, biologics, or small molecules, Tempo provides a fully validated MES system that's both powerful and easy to use. It streamlines your processes, ensures compliance, and adapts to your specific manufacturing needs. So get off of paper batch records and discover how Apprentice's Tempo Manufacturing Cloud can transform your operations by visiting us at apprentice.io. Attention industry professionals, revolutionize your manufacturing process with the Apprentice Tempo Manufacturing Cloud, a manufacturing execution system built to streamline your operations, boost efficiency, and ensure compliance all in one powerful platform. Experience the future of manufacturing with our free 30-day trial. Scan the QR code on your screen now to unlock a world of innovation. Don't just keep pace, set the tempo as an industry leader with Apprentice. That's all for Apprentice.io's Industry Insights. I'm Frank Maggiore. Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for notifications when new episodes drop. Please comment on if you have any additional topics you would like for me to cover in this space, and we'll see you next week for more Industry Insights.